Good morning and welcome to our brand new 10 o'clock slot for Sunday experiences. I just got so tired getting up early in the morning on a Sunday, so we just had to move that to a later slot. No, I'm just kidding. I know you guys were tired of partying by yourselves Saturday night that we had to move it to 10 o'clock. Now, I'm still kidding, but welcome to our new series called New Beginnings. We're at the beginning of the year. We're looking forward to what's happening. We know it's going to be difficult. There's going to be challenges, but we're going to be using this time to get ready for it, to prep for it, to lean in and make sure we see the results that we expect for 2021. So join me as we join the band for their song that they collaborated on for this week.
My victory, when all I see is the mountain, you see a mountain move. And as I walk through the shadow, your love surrounds me. There's nothing to fear, for I am safe with you. So when I fight, I'll fight on my knees with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you, and every fear I lay at your feet. I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. For me, who can be against me? For Jesus, there's nothing impossible for you. When all I see are ashes, you see the beauty. I'll fight on my knees with my head lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you, and every fear I lay at your feet. I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. An almighty fortress, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine through the shadows, you win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. An almighty fortress, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows, you win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. An almighty fortress, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows, lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you, and every fear I lay at your feet. I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. So when I fight, I'll fight on my knees with my head lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you, and every fear I lay at your feet. I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Oh God, the battle belongs to you.
I'm pretty sure you enjoyed that song by the band. This is the first time that they were able to come together in a live environment where every individual band member came together and recorded, and not just sent in their addition to the song in a digital format and then was compiled. And in saying that, that links in perfectly with what we're going to be talking about this morning, and also our series that we're launching into. Our series name is New Beginnings. We're going to be talking about new beginnings as it is the beginning of the year, but also as we're still navigating this difficult time that we're in. To give you an idea of what we're going to be talking about, we're going to be journeying with the Israelites as they leave Egypt. We're going to pause at that moment, have a look at that, and try and discover what does that mean to me, what does that say to me, and how does that inform what 2021 is going to look like for me. Then the second week, we're going to be looking at crossing the River Jordan, which is the next important, there's a lot of stuff that happens in between, but the next moment that we want to take a snapshot of and look into crossing the Jordan River. And then for the third week, we're going to be looking at God's love and our love for Him and what that means for us. So that's our 3 weeks that are ahead of us. So what I want to do this morning is just kind of remind you guys about last year. Last year, when we started, we said, man, 2019 was a tough year. 2020 is going to be the year. Not knowing, not having any idea what was ahead for us in 2020. And to be honest, with the conversations I've had with people, it's changed completely from October, November last year to now recently, end of December and January. And everybody that I speak to, and I ask them, how are you guys doing? Are you coping with COVID? Everybody's saying that it used to be something over there, but now it's become personal. Instead of us knowing about somebody that knows somebody that's got COVID, now we know people that are battling with COVID, have gone through COVID, and even unfortunately have lost loved ones to COVID and because of COVID. So we're in this difficult time. We're not through that yet. We're navigating it. It's impacting our lives to an extent that I don't think we fully understand, but we are starting to understand how that impacts us. So what I want to do is show you a video of exactly that. So let's take a look at that video. So what we see in this video is, without any reference, you first have to figure out what's happening. And then you realize, well, it's one character, it's this little girl in different settings, and she keeps on doing the same thing. And then you realize she's sanitizing. She's just picking random objects that look like sanitizing stations, and she's sanitizing. And then you realize, well, she's growing up, she's emulating what she sees other people doing, and this is normal for her. It's normal going up to objects that are square and rectangular and dispensing hand sanitizer. But that's the impact that COVID has had in our lives. It's changed things radically. We were fortunate enough to go away for a week in December. And for any of you that have spent time in an environment where it's not you as a family unit going somewhere, but you're in a shared space with other people, a public area, you've got that vibe of everybody connecting with everybody, having conversations. It's changed completely. Family units stay within family units. You're still friendly, you still wave, but it's a wave at a distance, and it's a conversation that happens over 3 or 4 meters. That's how things have become real for us, and things have changed for us. So what I want to do is take us to the Israelites and have a look at their situation and ask the question, well, how does that inform 2021 for me? So if we look at the Israelites, they were in essence in slavery, in captivity in Egypt. And if you think of the circumstances for them, it would have been horrible. You've got no rights. You expected to work. Your children are growing up, and they the next generation labor force, so they born into slavery as slaves. If we think of difficult circumstances, that's difficult circumstances. And within the midst of this, God then comes and says, I'm going to lead you out of Egypt. Now, if somebody now comes and says, well, there's no strings attached with the vaccine, there's no conspiracy theory behind it, and all our problems are solved within 2 months, we're like, man, this is amazing, let's go. And so we find the Israelites having this promise of leaving Egypt, starting a relationship with God, without them fully understanding and realizing that. And Moses then leads them out of Egypt. And as we read Exodus 13, verse 17 and 18, let me just read those 2 verses for you. When Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them on the road through the Philistine country, though that was shorter. For God said, if they face war, they might change their minds and return to Egypt. Okay, so they're leaving Egypt. That's now left behind them. They're traveling to the land that God has said He's going to give them, which is Canaan, which we're going to look at next week. But they're leaving Egypt, and God says, I'm not going to lead them on the shortest route. Because if they follow that route, they're going to be facing the Philistines. When they do that, it might just then derail the plans I have for them. Put them in a space where they ask the question, is this really worth it? Is it not worth going back to Egypt? And when we continue reading the story, we find this coming back into the story where the Israelites will go through a period of lack of water. And they would go to Moses and say, well, it would have been better for us in Egypt. We don't have food. It was better for us in Egypt. Because for people, for us, it's so easy to forget the hardships and the suffering. And then forget about that to the extent where you say, it was better. Even though you know it wasn't better. But in that moment, it feels like it. So God knows people. He knows us intimately. And He then says, I'm not going to lead them through that route. I'm going to take them through a different route. But let's continue reading verse 18. And this is what we read. So God led the people around by the desert road toward the Red Sea. So the alternative road wasn't an easy road. It's not through the Nizna forest, where it's cool and there's lots of water and animals and it's easy. It's in the desert. Anybody that's gone through the Karoo will know that it's hot, it's dusty, and it would be difficult if you're on foot walking through that environment. And then the last sentence of that verse. The Israelites went up out of Egypt ready for battle. And therein lies the key and the main point that we're looking at this morning. God knows the Israelites so well that they left Egypt ready for battle. They are pumped up, psyched up, ready. They're going to take the world by force. But God knows them. God knows their hearts. He knows that they're willing, but they're not able. So He then takes them through the desert road, which in our minds this is probably the most horrible plan B we've ever heard of. But it's better than what we would have envisioned for plan A. We would have taken the shorter route. We're ready for Canaan. We're ready to go. Not realizing what would be on the road if we follow plan A. And the Israelites were ready. They were ready for plan 1. So what we're talking about this morning is this place that we find ourselves in where we're frustrated, where we don't understand. We can't figure this out. It doesn't make sense. There are better ways and better means of doing things. So let me give you guys another example of something like this. If we read in John 6, we read of a blind man reaching out to Jesus, saying, Jesus, heal me. And here's the amazing thing. Jesus heals the man that's blind. But I want us to look specifically at how Jesus heals the blind man. Because what I want to address in the second part of this morning's message is this whole concept of Christian magic. Now, we might have a different interpretation of what that means, but what I want to use that term to implicate is where we kind of move into the space where everything is on God. I say a prayer, and then God's going to fix everything for me. If we look at the Israelites leaving Egypt, they had to cross the Red Sea. God parted the Red Sea for them. But they had to do something. They had to walk through the sea. If we think of that moment that we just gloss over, this amazing miracle, God is amazing, let's walk through this. If you were that person about to put your foot in the Red Sea and you, whatever that looked like at that moment, because there are different theories for it, but you see the sea parted, would you trust that when you're halfway through that water wouldn't collapse on you? So it was nerve-wracking for them to do what God told them to do. So keep that in mind as we read this passage from John. So in John 9, verse 6, after saying this, he spit on the ground, that's Jesus, made some mud with the saliva and put it on the man's eyes. So Jesus is busy healing the blind man. He spits on the ground, mixes the ground with the saliva, and takes that mud and puts it on the man's eyes. Now, within the context of COVID and Corona, that would be a no-go, but we're not going there at the moment. But for us even, if that was you and you asked Jesus to heal you and he spits on the ground and he puts mud on your eyes, it's like, that's not how you would have done it. That's not how you would have thought in your mind this needed to be fixed, to be solved, to be resolved. And then Jesus says, go, he told him, wash in the pool of Siloam. So the man went and washed, and he went home. But more importantly, and came home seeing. In other words, the man was healed. But here's the thing. Jesus does something, and then he says to the man, go and do something. And only when he went and he did exactly what Jesus told him to do, he was healed. What if halfway to the bath of Siloam, he said, I don't believe in this. I don't think it's going to work. And he never did it. What if he said, I've got water at my house. Why walk to Siloam to wash it off there? Why don't you just wash off at the house? And as I'm saying this, I'm looking at my own life and thinking of the instances where I've kind of second-guessed God and had better ideas than God did. And it didn't turn out the way I thought it would turn out. So therein lies a lesson for me. But this is what we're finding in this narrative, is that Jesus says something. He can easily have just spoken and the person would have been healed. But what Jesus is busy doing is he's exercising this person's faith muscle. He's saying, trust me enough to go there, to wash, to be healed. That's what God does. God says to the Israelites, trust me enough that this difficult road that I'm putting you on is the best road for you. So what God is doing is exercising our faith muscles. So what I'm lobbying this morning is to take a look, do a stock take of this morning. Be that little girl with a hand sanitizer, but be objective. Stand outside of yourself and look at yourself and ask the question, what is God busy with in my life in this moment? If I had to choose 2020 and 2021, I would have chosen different things. But within what's happening, what is this telling me about me? What is this telling me about priorities, about God? Because I think as we talk about faith and trusting God, this is probably the most important time for us to be real with this whole concept of we haven't got this. A lot of us had plans for 2020 which on paper were phenomenal. 2020 was going to be the year, and it was wiped cleanly off the table in one fell swoop. Because it's not in our hands. We can't control everything. And then when plans go awry, what do we do? Do we start doubting God? Or do we lean in more in that relationship and start trusting God even more? So that's the point where we're at. And what I'm lobbying for in this series is look at these moments day to day in your life of trusting God. And be bold enough to share those stories with other people. Allow other people insight into that moment in your life, because that's a testimony for them. It's an encouragement for them. And in this time, everybody can do with a bit of encouragement. So be bold enough and trust enough to share your story of how God was true and faithful for you in that moment, and what the impact was of that. So what we've learned this morning, and what we've learned from COVID, is that God is busy with something. God is busy doing something. Whether we acknowledge it or not, give recognition to it or not. And the question is, how do we partner with God in this? Are we going to allow this to strengthen us and grow us? Or is this just a period of our lives that we'd rather not talk about? And the sooner we can forget about it, the better. So as we're starting the year, and as we're getting to go back into our new normal routines, take that moment of reflection and ask yourself, what have I learned out of 2020? How does that inform 2021? There's a lot of new skills that we've learned, working with life group leaders. It's just amazing to see how they stepped up to the plate in terms of connecting with people and embracing technology to be able to connect with people more effectively. People that weren't familiar with Zoom and just barely heard of Skype, that suddenly embraced that technology, become fluent in Zoom meetings. Some people more successfully than other people, but that's besides the point. And now they just stepped up and said, this is an opportunity for me to use this new skill and connect with people more effectively. So what did you learn out of 2020? And how is that going to make 2021 better? Despite the fact that we're not back to where we want to be and how we see things to be. And trust God in this period and share your story with other people of God's faithfulness. And join me next week as we go further in this journey and as we face the giants with the Israelites as they cross the river Jordan into Canaan.